Thanks for joining us for this symposium. I'm Bill Rapisi, President and CEO of the Lymphatic Education Research Network. LE&RN's mission is to fight lymphatic diseases through education, research, and advocacy. In order to win a fight, you first have to join it. So we ask, please become a supporting member of LE&RN at lymphaticnetwork.org. And we hope you enjoy today's symposium.
Thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Kimberley Steele. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the Lymphatic Education and Research Network for allowing us this forum to share an exciting brand new research funding opportunity for our scientific community. I am a program manager at the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, and my current portfolio is all things lymphatics. For those who may not be familiar with my family story, I am a surgeon by trade, but most importantly, I am a mom of two amazing teenage boys, Michael and Matthew. At the age of 6, my son Michael was diagnosed after a year-long diagnostic odyssey with Kaposiform lymphangiomatosis, a rare and life-threatening condition that only has partial treatments to offer and no cure. As my son was fighting for his life at his bedside, I had vowed to somehow make a difference for him and the other kids or adults like him by using whatever skills I had to help our researchers find improved diagnostics and treatments. Well, the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, ARPA-H, is helping us, our community, to do that through 2 new programs. For those who joined in May, we launched LIGHT, Lymphatic Genotyping and Phenotyping Technologies, a program working to improve early diagnosis of lymphatic dysfunction. And now today, I get to share with you GLIDE, groundbreaking lymphatic interventions and drug exploration. I'm asking for you to join my team and alongside with our scientists, researchers, industry, and more, as we plan to glide into the future with groundbreaking lymphatic interventions and drug exploration. Before I jump into the program, I thought maybe it would be good to explain just what ARPA-H is, especially for those who have not heard about it. For those who might not be familiar with ARPA-H, it's a brand new government agency that was stood up by President Biden in 2022 to support research that will accelerate better health outcomes for everyone. Now, what does that all mean? Well, ARPA-H was modeled after another government agency, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And what is DARPA? Well, it works towards improving national security for the United States of America. And the idea was to take DARPA's model and put it and use it towards improving our health care. So where DARPA has been instrumental in giving us the internet, in stealth technology for our defense, and in self-driving cars, and importantly, mRNA vaccines like the COVID vaccine, ARPA-H plans to improve the health for all. And what does that all kind of look like? Well, a program manager like me comes along and pitches an idea or several ideas that are high risk, high consequence, high reward. And they are hard or bold and audacious ideas, but could be attainable if given the right support and if only we tried. And the goal is to create a technology that will somehow improve public health. It must be disease agnostic. What does that mean? We don't concentrate on just one disease. And if we do tend to concentrate on a single or couple of diseases, the goal is that the technology created could be translatable to other diseases. Then once a program manager is picked out and comes on board, they then need to define the problem. And how do they do that? By reaching out to many, many global stakeholders. Who are they? Potential performers, like scientists, like clinicians, like nonprofit groups, like patients, their families, advocacy groups, pharmaceutical, technology, you name it. We need to reach out and ask good questions. What are the gaps, the challenges, and what are the opportunities? And what that does during those interviews is informs the program manager of how they will plan to develop the program. Once the program is drafted, they then solicit the solutions. Someone once said, while we were doing these interviews, it's like solving Mission Impossible. So we give a problem and we're asking our researchers, clinicians, industry to come up with the solutions from our scientific community. And importantly, what we do is encourage teaming. It's not just the buddy down the hallway, but it's teams filled with the needed expertise to be successful at the end of the day. And what does success look like? It's a technology that moves into clinical validation or trials and is ready to, or is ready to be transitioned from ARPA-H into what is called the Wild West. In other words, once the funding ends from ARPA-H, that someone is willing to take on this technology now because ARPA-H has de-risked that technology. And the difference between traditional funding like the National Institute of Health and ARPA-H, besides the fact that they are not grant awards, but indeed these are contracts, which means the performers, the principal investigators, the scientists who submit their proposals must meet very specific metrics and deliverables, those milestones. And not only that, but it has to be done in a really fast-paced, short time frame. We only have 5 years to accomplish these programs. And these ideas, the solutions, must be bold and advance the state of the art, what we currently have now. And that's what's so exciting about ARPA-H. So we're looking for more than just an incremental change, slow progress, but to advance the state of the art 10 times more and faster. I put this slide up and included it because I wanted to share with you another opportunity from ARPA-H, and that is the ARPA-Net-H network. And the goal of the ARPA-Net-H network is to bridge disparate, siloed groups or pieces of the health ecosystem together and empower our communities so that there's collaboration. The first of our 3 main hubs include the Stakeholder and Operations Hub, which is in the nation's capital in DC. And this is where stakeholder engagements occur with our critical regulatory and legislative partners so that we develop support to transition these new technologies out into the real world. And that support is for our researchers. And examples include all of the government groups that are located in the DC area, including the FDA, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, and also our own headquarters, ARPA-H. The next hub is located in Dallas, Texas, and that's our customer experience hub. This is where our patients, our people, the customers, our community engage with each other and collaborate. And why? Because we need a patient-led voice to meet our health needs for all Americans. And that means having patients right up front have their voices heard so the technologies will survive out in the real world. And examples of these capabilities include the assistance with advancing manufacturing of the technology, the assistance with improving recruitment for clinical trials, the assistance with providing health labs out in the community, and the help with supporting testing, validation, and evaluating these products. The Investor Catalyst Hub is located in Boston, Massachusetts. And here, the effort is to collaborate on accelerating that transition, the translation of innovative ideas into practical applications, and therefore transform patient care with sustainable investment. So examples include creating market landscape analysis, working with philanthropy and venture capitalists and incubators to get that technology from ARPA-H to the next step. And why again do I share this with you? Well, because there is an opportunity for people like you out there, industry, academic universities, medical schools, patient advocacy groups, nonprofits, small businesses to join the ARPA-H as what's called a spoke. And the spokes work with the hubs, and the spokes work with each other to bridge those gaps and collaborate, which I feel is pretty exciting. And we are hopeful that in the programs that I will have spoken about today, we will utilize the ARPA-H to bring them in and work with them to improve our programs and help our teams that are working on the solutions. Okay, now to jump into the programs. Again, for those who are aware of this program, awesome. For those who may still be unaware of this program, this was our first program launched way back in May, feels like a long time. And it's called LIGHT, Lymphatic Imaging, Genomics, and Phenotyping Technologies. And the goal, again, with this program is to shine a light on the lymphatic system and make the invisible visible. Why? Because the lymphatic system has been both literally and figuratively underappreciated for far too long. Why has it been underappreciated? Because it's been understudied. Why has it been understudied? Because there hasn't been a great deal of funding put towards it. Why hasn't there been a great deal of funding? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but namely, it's because the lymphatic system is a really tough and complex system that has been really hard to visualize and understand. We're hoping with LIGHT to change that. And the question we've asked is, what if we could make the invisible lymphatic system visible? And I encourage those who may not know about light to go to the ARPA-H website and take a look at the webpage. If you have any questions about this program, you can make a request through an inbox called light@arpah.gov. Now we get to jump into the exciting new program, GLIDE. My team and I, along with the scientists and our community, hope to glide into the future with groundbreaking lymphatic interventions and drug exploration. Before I begin to discuss more about the program, I'd like to introduce our team GLIDE. That includes myself as the program manager, but importantly, it includes Doctors Joshua Hooks and Doctors Jenny Gu, who provide the science and engineering technical advisor role, and the Maddie McQuaid, who is our business financial manager. I also would like to wholeheartedly thank ARPA-H and its leadership, including the director, Dr. Renee Wegrezen, and the deputy director, Dr. Susan Monaris, along with my mission office, Health Science Futures, Dr. Amy Jenkins, and deputy director, Dr. Tyler Best. Thank you for seeing the importance of the lymphatic system and for the opportunity for our lymphatic community to identify and develop new, earlier diagnostic tools and improved therapeutics for underlying lymphatic dysfunction. The question that GLIDE would like to offer is, what if doctors were able to prevent and cure human disease by targeting the lymphatic system? Now, let me show you why the lymphatic system is so important to health and how we can leverage, make it a transformational tool to treat so many diseases. And how are we going to do that? Well, in the LIGHT program during the webinar, we talked about Lymphatics 101. So now I'm bringing to you Lymphatics 102. Here you have some of our body's organs, the lungs, and representing our gut. Well, all of our organs and tissues in our body need oxygen and nutrients to be delivered to every one of our cells. And this is taken care of via our circulatory system, arteries and veins, but we cannot forget the third part of this important system, the lymphatic system, a parallel highway with the roads of the circulatory system, our arteries and veins throughout the body. And I would argue, as I know many of you would, that the lymphatic system is just as important and critically important in maintaining health. To briefly provide some background, each day our heart pumps approximately 5 liters per minute of oxygenated blood that came from the lungs throughout our entire body. Why? To deliver oxygen and nutrients to cells and tissues. That happens at the capillary level, where the arteries and the veins get very, very small. At that level, about 90% of our blood is returned once the cells get its oxygen and nutrients through our veins. And it gets returned back to the heart to be pumped back to the lungs to start that circuit all over again. But 10% of the rest of that blood volume leaks out into our tissues. That's normal process. And it leaks out through those small blood capillaries into, again, those tissues. The space between our cells of our tissue is called the interstitial space or extracellular space. And this is where the lymphatic system comes into play and where it plays a critical role in health and in disease. Imagine, and here we see our heart, our lungs, our kidneys, the liver, all of our tissues, and our brain too. All of them have lymphatics because when fluid seeps out of the small blood capillaries into the interstitial space, that fluid has to be removed somehow. And the only way it is removed is through our lymphatic system. Our lymphatic system is a one-way system of vessels, starting with terminal lymphatics and progressing through larger lymphatic vessels to our lymph nodes. Now, the lymph nodes are like our security guards or like a security system at the airport, where the protein-rich fluid called lymph is filtered through the lymph nodes to remove waste and pathogens. What are pathogens? Viruses, bacteria, any type of waste. And thanks to our immune cells, the remaining lymphatic fluid, which is cleared by the lymph nodes and the immune cells, moves onward towards the thoracic duct, which is located up in your chest, and it empties into our venous circulation to start this whole cycle all over again. This system is the only body system that removes fluid from our tissues. There is no venous, the veins don't absorb that fluid. And it's something that has been overlooked for over too many years. But now scientists are recognizing it. They're recognizing it so much that the National Institute of Health held an important seminar or workshop, and it was all focused on lymphatics. And this slide comes from the Journal of Clinical Investigations, where the National Institute of Health published this very important paper, noting the emerging importance of lymphatics in health and in disease. They recognized how important our lymphatic system is and how it plays a role in underlying chronic diseases. So many diseases, including type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, inflammatory bowel disease, asthma, and other chronic lung diseases, chronic kidney disease, HIV, infection, hepatitis, and even in COVID, as well as in other neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, glaucoma, autoimmune diseases like lupus, and even in transplant rejection, there is underlying lymphatic dysfunction that has an association with the risk of transplant rejection. What a unique opportunity it will be to target our lymphatic system. So let's move on and let me share with you the state of the industry. Industry, along with the US healthcare system, has underappreciated the true burden of lymphatic dysfunction and what it is costing Americans, both monetarily and in suffering. And so I have up here this statement: lymphatic dysfunction is costly for Americans with few therapeutic options and no cures. Bringing your attention to this first chart. looking at primary lymphatic diseases, including lymphatic tumors and malformations, and lymphedema, both primary, inherited, and secondary lymphedema caused by trauma, surgery, infection. Just take a look at this cost of annual treatment and how it's represented here. Together, the total over $1 billion in market size just for primary lymphatic diseases. The annual treatment costs for out-of-pocket expenses per patient. We point out that most of these costs are not covered by insurance companies because they are experimental or off-label use, or because we don't have the coding for it. And to personalize this and beyond the diagnosis and treatment, let's look at the annual cost of productivity per patient. For example, lymphatic malformations and tumors. It costs an individual $5,000 per year out of pocket in lost productivity. It costs $8,000 for those with lymphedema. And it's costing our US population billions of dollars just in lost productivity. In fact, over 42 billion. As a use case, let's look at what it costs for breast cancer-related lymphedema treatment and how much we could save annually. Stout et al. In 2021 showed in their paper that it could save a patient per year over $10,000 to $20,000 by preventing complications and reducing hospital admissions. So now let's look at how many patients are diagnosed with breast cancer. That number is over 300,000 cases of breast cancer per year on average. If 30% of women get breast cancer-related lymphedema following their treatment, that's 90,000 women per year. We could be saving $1.8 billion in lymphedema treatment as a cost saving if only we had better diagnostics and improved treatments. Stunningly, the true impact of lymphatic dysfunction goes way beyond primary lymphatic diseases, as we're now becoming aware of how lymphatic dysfunction plays a critical role in a variety of the most common chronic diseases that Americans face. That includes chronic heart disease, breast cancer to Alzheimer's disease, and countless other indications. Together, this is costing the US population potentially billions of dollars. And importantly to note that even if lymphatic dysfunction only plays a secondary role in a common disease, this will have the potential to save individual lives, preventing complications and decreasing hospitalizations. And just think how this goes well beyond into things like inflammatory diseases, autoimmune diseases, and more. Now, what about the state of the art? What treatment options do doctors have to offer their patients? And the answer, sadly, is that treatment of lymphatic dysfunction happens too little, too late. Let's take the patient's journey. A person could go on living a healthy life and have some trauma, some infection, undergo surgery. And unbeknownst to them, they might incur a lymphatic injury. Well, at first, at stage 0, that's called subclinical. We can't see it. we aren't able to detect it because we don't have the diagnostic tools. And so that disease progresses until it becomes symptomatic. That's stage 1. And it might be stable for now, but because this is a progressive disease, and I'm speaking, for example, of lymphedema, it becomes now symptomatic, terribly symptomatic, and now irreversible. That's stage 2. And finally, at stage 3, it becomes so severe that it affects everyone's activities of daily living, your life, and it can be also deadly. So what do our doctors have? What does the current state of the art, as we say, look like in terms of therapy? Well, what can we offer? We can offer patients compression. Many of you are well aware of that. Stockings, massage, people tell you to exercise. If it becomes critical, then experimental procedures are now needed, and that includes interventional radiology procedures or surgical procedures that currently can only be carried out by those with technical expertise that require years of training. And then finally, are there any drugs, gene or cell therapies? Not many. And those that we do have, currently, again, there are no FDA-approved therapies. Drugs are being used off-label. And there are no FDA-approved therapies that directly target our lymphatic system. And those therapies, which tend to be very toxic, are lifelong. So what choices do we have? Compression with palliation. Those are really intolerable to wear, difficult to wear. And so we don't have very good compliance. Procedures that are experimental, invasive, and many times temporary, or very few drugs. And you see these dots here, they're colorful. Those represent the different types of therapies. And just take a look at where doctors are able to utilize those therapies now. Well, compression could be used for symptomatic and onward. The other types of therapeutics are only used generally when the disease now is irreversible. So the treatments are only palliative, no cures, and or when the disease becomes acute, chronic, and very severe. But what is the hope with GLIDE? What is our aim and goal? Well, the future of the therapeutic landscape with GLIDE includes preventative physical interventions directly targeting our lymphatic system. So that might mean improved compression garments. It could mean ways to relieve an obstruction called decompression, but aimed directly for the lymphatic system in a less invasive way. It could be targeted drug therapies. It could one day, with hope, be curative targeted cell and gene therapies. And those should occur when the disease is subclinical and or stable. And if and only if the diagnosis for some reason had not been made earlier, which we hope with LIGHT program, it will be made much sooner. But if the disease does get caught later on, that we will be able to provide our community with better compression, more tolerable compression, and possibly better procedures where decompression, alleviation of that obstruction is with less harm, less risk, less invasive. And imagine, just imagine, that we'd have FDA-approved targeted therapeutic tools available at all stages of a patient's journey. And now to talk more about the program itself. And this is really focusing for our researchers here. But GLIDE's program vision includes looking at the problem. And it will address a sobering issue that I just presented to you, that in 2024, millions of Americans live with diseases driven by lymphatic dysfunction. And these include both common and rare diseases, which can be progressive, debilitating, and deadly. The only treatment doctors can offer is palliation, and there is no cure. As a parent, learning that doctors have few options to offer our son, well, that was crushing, but it also became my motivation. I met as a parent, and now as a program manager, I've had the opportunity to meet hundreds of global experts. And I asked, why in 2024 are effective treatments lacking? Well, I learned of 4 major challenges that we need to focus on to improve lymphatic health. As I asked, what are the gaps, the challenges, and the opportunities? Challenge 1 is obstruction. And if there's an obstruction, then the flow of the fluid in the lymphatics cannot work normally. And just like arteries and veins, if a lymphatic becomes obstructed and there is abnormal flow to our tissues and organs, those tissues and organs swell. They get filled with fluid, and the tissues and the organs can't work properly. The other 3 challenges are less focused on, with not as much attention. And these are difficult challenges for the lymphatic system, but there is now a growing interest in them. One is leaky vessels. What does that mean? Just like arteries and veins can leak fluid, so can lymphatics. If the arteries and veins become overwhelmed and you have too much fluid, such as in chronic kidney disease or in heart failure, then fluid becomes too overwhelming for our lymphatic system to deal with. And/or our lymphatic system itself can leak. And then there's too much fluid in that interstitial space between the cells. The third challenge is poor vessel contraction. Just like arteries and veins, lymphatics do pump, but they pump at a much slower rate. And it depends a lot on things like muscles and exercise. And if the lymphatics are not pumping properly, it can cause all kinds of problems, just like an obstruction or leaky vessels. And then finally, challenge number 4, abnormal lymphatic growth. Sometimes we don't have enough lymphatic growth. Sometimes, as in lymphatic malformations or tumors, we have too much growth. And so today, what can we offer? Well, like I mentioned in the patient's journey, we can offer compression, but that's lifelong and difficult to tolerate. We can offer decompression. That means alleviating or making better the obstruction. And while it's promising and needed, currently it's experimental, invasive, and of limited benefit. And what about the other 3 challenges? Well, today, to address them, we have no FDA-approved therapies that specifically target the lymphatic structure or function. And as mentioned, treatment is only palliative. And it consists of drugs that have pretty significant side effects, or we use compression. But tomorrow, we want to change that. How? Well, with challenge number 1, we are going to focus on restoring flow, removing the obstruction through physical interventions. And for challenges 2 through 4, we're going to focus on normalizing function through targeted pharmacologic, gene, and cell therapies. So that the vision for GLIDE, what do we see? A future where doctors will use a therapeutic armamentarium. What does that mean? A huge toolkit filled with drugs and devices, therapies such as cell and gene therapies, to target abnormal lymphatic structure and function, to prevent and cure both primary lymphatic diseases and chronic diseases with underlying lymphatic dysfunction. So we believe that targeting the lymphatic system can be a transformational tool to treat many diseases. And for those scientists out there, you can read the solicitation on the GLIDE webpage. But for sake of going quickly here, there are 2 technical areas that we're focusing on to create this comprehensive toolkit of physical interventions and pharmacologic technologies. Those include technical area 1, reminder, focusing on the obstruction. We're going to restore flow through physical interventions. In technical area 2, focusing on those challenges of leaky vessels, poor contraction, and/or abnormal growth. We're going to focus on normalizing the function of the lymphatic system through targeted pharmacologic and gene and cell therapies. Now, to kind of dive a little deeper into each of the technical areas without giving too much detail right now, but what we have today is compression, but it's our only solution. Or we can try to decompress, but that's highly invasive and experimental. In the future, what we're aiming for with GLIDE are what we call SMART, adaptive compression. What does that mean? It's more tolerable. It focuses more on the way that the lymphatics actually flow and will improve and make treatment easier. And if we focus on the decompression options, possibly those could look like more novel microsurgical and/or minimally invasive interventional procedures. The current challenges, as we've talked about, is that right now these devices only offer palliation, that compression is cumbersome, there's poor compliance, and it interferes with our daily life. The decompression aspects, relieving those obstructions, requires highly trained and skilled surgeons and interventional radiologists. And those are only available in academic centers. So the goal here is to leverage enabling technologies from outside the lymphatic field, for example, biomaterials that are used for other disciplines, surgical approaches perhaps that are used for other disciplines, as well as lymphatic imaging, possibly from the LIGHT program, to accelerate, improve upon the physical interventions that we have so that we can improve lymphatic dysfunction. And our aim is to work with the FDA to have approval for some minimally invasive or non-invasive devices. And then for technical area 2, today, right now, as we look at therapies, we are using drugs off-label because we don't have FDA-approved therapeutics directly targeting the function of or structure of the lymphatic system. But in the future, we're aiming for viable, what does that mean? Really improved targeted therapies that specifically address lymphatic structure and function. The current challenges that our researchers and clinicians face right now is we have no FDA-approved drugs in the US that specifically target lymphatic dysfunction. It truly is difficult. It's not like the scientists have not been trying. It's difficult to deliver and sustain concentration of these drugs in our lymphatic system. Much of it remains in our blood system, and that's part of the problem because it causes some pretty significant complications and side effects that no one enjoys. All of the drugs that we are using right now, basically, are given off-label. There is one that we use that does have FDA approval. It's used for breast cancer. But again, it has a lot of toxic side effects because it doesn't get into that lymphatic system. And many of these drugs, almost all, are immunosuppressants. So they lower our immune system's ability to work normally, and or chemotherapeutic drugs. And they're not given just for a set period of time. It's for a lifetime. So what's the goal here? It's to create lots of drugs and therapies that will target our lymphatic system in a safe and effective manner. So that GLIDE in the end hopes, again, to be working with the FDA and others to achieve the milestones needed for approval of these therapies and to ensure that they're affordable and accessible. Now, in going back a little bit, as I mentioned, light, and now I'm talking about GLIDE. I have this slide up here. Why? Because I worked fast and furiously to get both of these programs to be launched so that they can work in parallel. Again, why? Well, light is focusing on visualization and diagnostics. And at the same time, GLIDE will be focusing on targeted treatments. And the idea is, and I'm sure you can understand and appreciate this, these two programs and their goals are complementary and unique to the opportunity to be integrated and expand so that there is collaboration between these two programs, LIGHT and GLIDE. They will be able to enhance the effectiveness of each program by promoting innovation, acceleration, I call it, while maintaining their independent objectives. So what does that look like? Well, we're going to have a cross-pollination of ideas. There will be regular interactions between the LIGHT and GLIDE performers, and that will be inclusive of a patient engagement plan. And we hope to foster and encourage innovation with new diagnostic methods that inspire novel therapeutic approaches and vice versa. At the same time, we are looking for accelerated development. We believe that the collaborative efforts will be a win-win, as it can shorten the time from discovery to implementation, bringing new diagnostics and therapies to patients quickly and improving the affordability of existing therapies across under-resourced communities. So, with LIGHT, what if we could make the invisible lymphatic system visible? And with GLIDE, What if doctors were able to prevent and cure human disease by targeting the lymphatic system? We are going to move leap years ahead. And before I finish, I'd like to bring up the importance of accessibility, inclusivity, and affordability, something that ARPA-H is very much believes in and is focused on, that there should be improved health for all. And as a program manager, we were tasked with coming up with ways to improve this. And in Light and Glide, we are introducing the Discovery Duo program. What does that mean? Well, from my own personal experience, what I learned quickly is that incorporating patient-led design and advocacy from day zero is really important, because a patient's voice adds to the improvement, the creativity, and the success of the technology. And so each performing team that comes on board with us at ARPA-H as a light performing team or a glide performing team will be tasked with identifying a discovery duo. And that is a pairing, a partnership between a patient or parent or caregiver ambassador and an early investigator, preferably from underrepresented populations in our ecosystem. The discovery duos from each team will then form our accessibility task force. And that task force is called the JEDI task force: Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity. And it will work to bridge light and glide performers together. We will work as a task force with myself and an accessibility advisor, and we will focus on the challenge. The challenge is that there is a lack of patient input in design and development of lymphatic medical technologies. The goal of the task force will be to involve the patient in the design process right from the start, because lymphatic dysfunction does not discriminate. And so some of those challenges that our accessibility task force will work on includes access to care, inclusion, and affordability, to remove the feeling of isolation, whether it be our researchers who are siloed because of the way the system works with the competition of research, or whether it's the patients and their caregivers and providers being isolated from access to the academic centers, for example, or the experts, whether it's insurance coverage and proper coding. And of course, taking the technology and moving it out of ARPA-H and into the real world. How do we do that? Well, remember that ARPA-Net-H? We're hoping to involve the ARPA-Net-H. And of course, we want to ensure that we don't duplicate efforts and that there's no reinventing of the wheel, but that, again, we collaborate. And kudos and a shout out to the now established National Commission on Lymphatic Diseases. This happens to be an initiative, for example, that LE&RN helped accomplish. And that task force is setting out to improve and work on the gaps and challenges and look for the opportunities. And it's very exciting in the community. And we hope that we can partner and collaborate in the future. So what does success look like for our lymphatic portfolio? Well, the lymphatic system will no longer be forgotten, but instead revolutionize medicine by offering new ways to diagnose, treat, and prevent a variety of diseases. The lymphatic system will no longer be underappreciated. We will have at least a handful of candidate devices and therapies that have been de-risked so that other investors, even traditional funding entities, will feel confident to fund. Our FDA will be informed and excited about the opportunities, and we will have created an army of investigators and clinicians interested in the lymphatic system. The centers of excellence will be mandatory by the centers of Medicaid and Medicare. And patients and families will be more informed and feel heard. Doctors will have more treatment options and feel engaged, not defeated. And payers will understand the cost savings. So in 5 years, we plan to have novel lymphatic therapies, both physical and pharmaceutical interventions, that prevent and treat lymphatic dysfunction so that we dramatically improve the management and outcomes for people living with lymphatic disorders. And it will not only impact common chronic diseases, including heart failure, chronic kidney disease, and neurodegenerative disorders or cancer. It will impact all diseases. And then in 10 years, what will we have? A new field of lymphatic medicine. Let's start #lymphatic medicine, bringing the once invisible lymphatic system into the prominence it deserves. That doctors will routinely include assessment of the lymphatic system in the management of chronic disease, and that we have revolutionary treatments of chronic disease through therapies targeting the lymphatic system, a critical system in our body. And with that, I would just like to invite our researchers, our clinicians, and industry to Proposers Day. For our community, what is Proposers Day? It is a day where we provide the ability for our researchers, clinicians, and industry to come together to learn about each other's technology and scientific progress, and to form teams, the best teams, the experts coming together to solve the problems that we've just laid out in those technical areas, 1 and 2, to provide the solutions. The Proposers Day will be a hybrid, so there will be an online part for those who can't make it, but for those who can, it's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee on October 1st, 2024. Reminder that registration closes on September 24th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The QR codes are up here for the program page and the registration. If you look up ARPA-H and look up the GLIDE program, you will find our webpage. And we encourage the researchers, the scientists, industry to sign up for the teaming page. Please come to Proposers Day. Those who will be in Nashville will have the opportunity to present their research in a lightning talk or a poster presentation. Those who are hybrid, have no fear. We or online. We hope you will still attend, and you will have the opportunity to do a virtual lightning talk 2 days later, and or you have the opportunity to join us in a breakout session in the afternoon on October 1st to meet other folks in this space. And with that, I just would like to again reiterate my gratitude and thanks to the Lymphatic Education and Research Network for all of their support on behalf of our entire lymphatic community, and for allowing us this platform to share with you our programs, both light and now GLIDE. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my slides and try to take some questions. Okay, The first one is from Dr. Aldrich. Is it okay for an institution research group to apply to both GLIDE and LIGHT? And the answer is yes, it is fine to do that. It's most likely smarter if it's a different PI. But yes, it is a different solicitation, so you may apply. What I suggest, again, the effort to get this second program out so quickly was in the big picture. The big picture is that the diagnostic folks work with the therapeutic folks, and that there is this cross-pollination and collaboration. So I hope that's answers that. The next question, are small proposals welcome? Can the same discovery duo serve on the GLIDE and LIGHT proposals? I would suggest, first of all, that you look at the solicitation. There are 2 tracks for GLIDE, and I'll go into that more for Proposers Day. It's also spelled out in the draft solicitation on sam.gov. So I would go and look at that. There are 2 technical areas that you can come in on, and then there are 2 cohorts, basically, based on your technical level or your technical readiness level. Whether your product is more mature or you need more time for proof of concept. If you're thinking very small proposals, those at ARPA-H are in the form of a small business opportunity and or through the innovative solutions opening. There's lots of acronyms. ISO, it's called. And that ISO, you can submit, it's agnostic. You can submit whatever you would like to submit, and it goes through a compliance, and then it goes and is divvied up through program managers to look at. As far as the discovery duo, I would say not a good idea to serve both as GLIDE and LIGHT. We want the idea behind this is that we bring in new, fresh people. So new early investigators, we bring in new advocates. We will be training that everyone who's on a discovery duo will receive advocacy training, which is pretty cool. And we'll talk more about that at Proposers Day, but that's going to be an offer up to learn how to advocate. And so I would say, let's try. And if you're not able to identify an advocate, that's where I'm hoping to work with the patient advocacy groups to identify people. I have lots of moms and dads in the trenches that I think would consider this possibly. I can't speak for them, but and then the next question is, if a proposal only addresses TA2, will ARPA-H assist to find a TA partner? So you do not have to come in with both technical areas. You can choose either one or the other. And in fact, we are saying you need to choose one or the other. So if you come in with a combined device plus a drug, based on FDA criteria, you need to choose which technical area is the most important one and come in under that. Because remember, what we're trying to get you to is IND submissions and to clinical trials, right? We're de-risking your work. So we're trying to follow FDA guidance, and that means coming in under one technical area. Again, if you want to combine the technical areas, we're going to ask that you choose to come in under one of those technical areas. It can be combined, but you're going to be represented within that technical area. I hope that makes sense. Okay, next, do the teams and patients need to be at the same institution? No, they do not have to. The teams will be given a stipend for their effort. It's a nominal stipend, but it's still some time and effort. Most of the work will be done virtually. We will have one accessibility workforce workshop, where we will all meet in person, which I'm very excited about, and that will be covered with travel expenses. We are going to ask that the Discovery Duos do some patient voice sessions. What does that mean? Get out to their communities, speak with the administrators, speak with patients that are living with this every day, speak with the doctors and the physical therapists, just like I read that comment from a physical and OT provider. Let's hear the issues and bring them back and create key performance indicators that we can address. So to answer that question, it was too long, I apologize, but patients and teams do not need to be at the same institution. You can be from afar, even internationally, as long as you're promising that you're going to work together virtually, which is what I did in my experience as we've gone along with my child and working with the researchers. It was all virtual during COVID. Here's one. You mentioned you wanted to improve data collection. Can you comment further on what you mean? What type of data and what does improvement mean? Yes, I can comment on that. Right now, our data, anything lymphatic, and many other conditions, data is sitting in siloed places, in academic institutions, in nonprofits. But not everyone has access to the data. And data is only as good as the data we collect and how we use it. So what our team is trying to think creatively about is just how we can take the data that we are going to be collecting and make it useful. Can we standardize it some way? Can we collect it in a meaningful way in one centralized place, maybe de-identified, where it can be shared and used appropriately? In my Light Proposers Day, we had the National Institute of Health's, all of us, come and speak. This is a large effort to bring normal collection of data, genomics, demographics, medications, you name it, together, collect it, and then make it useful to researchers. And so, again, we're trying to think of ways that we can protect our community, protect our researchers, but at the same time, make data effective. Again, personally, I can share with you, I've put my son in every data place I could, every registry. His data is everywhere, but it's not being used effectively. And we need a natural history of the disease so we can understand it better. And yet, we don't have that yet. I hope that answered it. The next one is, thank you for this webinar. Does this study include other FDA pharmaceuticals being approved for lymphedema treatments? For example, Dr. Roxon's recent FDA-approved study at Stanford. So GLIDE will take on proposals that have not yet been funded. GLIDE will take on proposals, and what's different about ARPA-H is this is not traditional funding, it's not grants. These are actually contracts, and these are performance rated. In other words, there will be metrics and milestones that the proposers will meet in order to get their next round of funding. So there's quite a lot of tight management, and there can be down selections, which means a team might not make it to the next effort if they're not making progress. with the whole idea of having multiple shots on goal and in the end having a final successful product. As far as funding for approved drugs, generally not. ARPA-H does not do clinical trials per se in phase 2 or phase 3. Again, it's de-risking efforts that would not normally be funded by traditional methods. I hope that answers that question. The next one is basic biology of lymphatic vessel contractility mechanisms is still unknown. Would proposals focus on such basic lymphatic biology without any therapeutic aspects be able to get funding through this program? So again, unlike the NIH, which funds very basic research, and the steps are incremental, ARPA-H is looking to fund things that, again, would not be funded through that mechanism, but there's a hypothesis, there's a really bold idea, and what needs to happen is a proof of concept, for example, or that it's feasible. And if we get to that, it can make it through to an IND, which means the FDA is allowing it to be then taken into a clinical trial. And that's what our goal is, to get things into clinical trials. So if vessel contractility mechanisms, you're right, are not known, but you're proposing just to demonstrate the mechanism without a therapeutic behind it, then no, it's not really appropriate for this funding mechanism. If you have some targeted drugs or hypotheses about a drug or a small molecule or a device, nanoparticle, and you have maybe some proof of concept and you want to expand it, but you're not getting funding, that would be a good example. I'm a 20-year allied healthcare professional, and I'm a fervent lymphedema therapy advocate and successful lobbyist for the recently passed LTA. I'm interested in being this advocacy team. How can I apply? So what you can do is reach out to or go to our web pages, and you can put in the inbox. There's a glide at arpah.gov or a light at arpah.gov, and you can share your name with us. And well, we can't tell the teams who to choose as an advocate. We can certainly, if you give us permission, share with the teams your potential wish to be an advocate. How can our PAG get on your contact list? Again, I think if you reach out to us through those inboxes, glide, GLIDE, at ARPA-H.gov, ARPA, yeah, -H.gov, we can get you on a contact list. And this one is just a comment, but I'll read it because it's a thank you. There is non-coverage for lipedema Medicare compression right now, mainly because it develops edema in later stages, but fibrosis slowed, prevented early. Yes, you're right, but fibrosis is prevented early with compression. Due to the very fine approval initiative leveraging secondary lymphedema communities for approval. Thank you, Bill Rapizzi and Kathy Bates and the Lymphedema Treatment Act, Heather et al., for this accomplishment. And I'm glad I was able to read that. If anyone has any other questions based on GLIDE, they're welcome to write into the GLIDE inbox. You can visit our webpage. Reminder that is for the researchers. And I hope that this was helpful and encouraging and bringing hope to everyone out there that we are working, the clinicians, the researchers are working really hard to improve what we know about the lymphatic system and to create what we call #lymphatic medicine, a brand new field. Thank you very much, everyone.